House John here. Put some more light in here. So anyway, I did this video, but I think I erased it. I don't think I put it up here. I'm gonna, I'm gonna, I'm gonna make this show about Bill Gates to set an example of how these billionaires get their money by being cunning, not smart. Okay. Now, the story I've heard, and I believe the story because it's believable, how Bill Gates really got his head start and became how Bill Gates actually became the richest man in the world. He didn't get there by himself. He didn't get by that by his intelligence. Okay, like I said before, you gotta generally you have three, you got three people, major people in the business. You got someone who really comes up with the good ideas. Then you have the other side. You have the guy who actually builds the good idea from the guy who thinks of it. And then you have the middleman, that middleman who he basically doesn't really do much. He just takes credit for the other two's work, and because he's a lowlife, he's a backstabber. Bill Gates was the middleman of that trio. He was the middleman. He was the useless middleman who just took credit for their work. Because I'm going by fact. I mean, I'm going by what I know. Okay, Steve Jobs was an expert salesman. He was like that. That was his gig, was selling the product. He was in charge of marketing the product. Steve Jobs. He's a master marketer. Bill Gates isn't. Bill Gates isn't. See, Steve Jobs is the pitch man. He's the pitch man. He's the one who's going to go out and get the people interested in the idea. Steve Wozniak is the one who actually created the actual software. Was Steve Wozniak? He built most of the hardware. He did most of the work. He was the creator. Okay. And Steve Wozniak, he's the one that really created more, invented more. He invented most of the actual material. He took it and made it real. Steve Wozniak took it and made it real. I guarantee you Steve Jobs came up with the software idea, not Bill Gates. It was Steve Jobs' idea to do software. He's the one that he came up with all the way of doing it. He was the mastermind behind the idea, was Steve Jobs. Bill Gates helped Wozniak create the idea, but Wozniak did majority of the work creating it. Okay, but here's a story I heard. And like I said, I believe it. I believe it. I think Bill Gates is that. He looks like a weasel rat. I mean, the guy's the epitome of a weasel rat. He has a look. He has the personality. But anyway, what I hear is, okay, at the time they were business partners. Wozniak was like because usually creators don't like the attention. Creators like staying in the background. Creators just like creating. They don't really care about the fame. Creators generally don't care about fame. They're more about the goal, less about the show. Creators, less about the cheap show. That's a creator. So Wozniak was more about the go, actually creating. He had more fun creating the stuff than going out on shows and talking about it. Creators don't like doing that kind of stuff. Um, and that's Steve Jobs. He's the one that likes doing that, going on getting the word out. Steve Jobs is more about getting the word out. Bill Gates was like I said. So what happened was, what I heard is Bill Gates and Steve Jobs were basically, they were like the main partners. So what happened was, it was real simple what Bill Gates did, how he screwed Steve Jobs. Very, very simple way he did it. All he did was, okay, here's what I think happened. Okay, for some reason, since Steve Jobs was the pitch man, IBM was the one that really put Bill Gates on they're the ones that put Microsoft on the map. IBM. They're the ones that catapulted Bill Gates to become a billionaire. Because what happened was, they were probably trying to get hold of Steve Jobs. Actually, you know what happened? I said this before. Here's what really happened. You know what Bill Gates did? Oh no. Here's what happened. Okay, so they could, say the IBM couldn't get hold of Steve Jobs. So, but they got hold of Bill Gates. They somehow got hold of Bill Gates instead. IBM. And they told Bill Gates that they're interested in buying the product, their Microsoft product. They're interested. They met a bunch of times before IBM finally decided to buy their product. So IBM they contacted Bill Gates and told him, yes, we're interested. We want to buy your product. We're willing to pay what you want. We know it's going to be the future, IBM. So what Bill Gates did? He went over to Steve Jobs and lied and told him that IBM wasn't interested at all. Okay, and and Steve Jobs probably got tired of waiting for IBM, to come around, and Steve Jobs probably just quit the partnership. Steve Jobs probably, what he was probably doing, he probably had Apple on the back burner. Steve Jobs had the Apple on the back burner, right? So he already had something to fall back on. So Steve Jobs just left Microsoft to Bill Gates because he thought it wasn't never going to go anywhere because of Bill Gates lying to him saying that IBM dropped out. But he lied about it. Bill Gates lied about it. He Wozniak so he didn't lie to Wozniak because Bill Gates needed Wozniak more than he needed Steve Jobs at the time, because now Bill Gates was going to take over Steve Jobs' job, and Wozniak was going to be the sole engineer of the actual product. So Bill Gates is now filling Steve Jobs' role, okay, as the pitch man. So Bill Gates, he's now the sole really head of Microsoft since Steve Jobs bailed, and he probably started working on his Apple because he had that in the back burner. So what Bill Gates did is he went and met IBM, because he's the sole. He's telling IBM he's the sole owner. He went to IBM and lied to IBM and told them that Steve, well, actually it was the truth. He just went to IBM and told Steve Jobs, he quit the partnership. He said he had something else he wanted to do instead. But really Bill Gates lied to Steve Jobs the whole time. But so that's so IBM now, so now Bill Gates is basically the owner of Microsoft. He probably threw Wozniak under the bus, acting like he was Bill Gates was just taking the credit for the other two's work. He was lying. It was the other two that were doing most of the work for Microsoft. Bill Gates was just a weasel rat. He just took credit for their work. Well, Bill Gates was, and so and Bill Gates made himself the new head of, he's the only, he's the man now. And so yeah, he signed a deal with IBM and got his $1 billion or whatever, and that's how Bill Gates became a billionaire. And I'm gonna say that's true. That's how it happened. He didn't get there because he knew a lot about computers. He was kind of intelligent, but it was Wozniak that did majority of the engineering on making the product. Steve Jobs, I guarantee you, he came up with the idea for the product. Steve Jobs. Bill Gates didn't do that, and he didn't really do much work on the engineering. Wozniak did most of that, you know. And the way he rewarded Wozniak was he did give him like $20 billion, but still, Bill Gates walked away with what, 50 billion. Now he's got over 100 billion. Bill Gates, So Bill Gates weaseled his way to be a billionaire. That's how you get that rich. You gotta be that devious to get that rich. There's no way he could have done that honestly. There's no way. He had a lot of help from a lot of intelligent people that he backstabbed. You know, because Steve Jobs proved it. I mean, Apple's a big success. See, he left and made it. See, when someone can leave and come up with something new and it's just as successful, that means they're really good at what they do. Kind of like how Tom Brady. He just proved he's the best quarterback in the NFL by completely leaving another team and taking them to the Super Bowl and winning. It's the same thing there. You know, Steve Jobs left, started a whole new business, and it was just as successful as Microsoft. So it proves Steve Jobs knew what he was doing. You know. So anyway, I want to do that video, man, because that's how these people become billionaires. The guy owns Amazon, all of them. They weasel their way up to the top. They're weasel rats. They're cunning. They're not intelligent. They're not smart. They're weasel rats. They're pathological liars. They got the devil's tongue, all that stuff. Because if you look at all these billionaires, they're scrawny little people. Physically, they're useless. They can't do anything physically. Their actions, they're not capable of action because they're too weak, physically weak to do action. So the only thing they can do is, backstab their way to the top, because they're not strong enough to face you head on like a warrior. Like when a warrior comes at you, he's going to come at you because he's physically strong enough to battle you. But these weasel rats like Bill Gates, they're not strong enough to. I mean, Bill Gates couldn't win a fight with a 12-year-old. I mean, literally. I mean, the guy's built. He's a scrawny little 110-pound piece of fly crap, and physically he couldn't take on. Not I'd say 95% of the guys out there, physically. So the best way he can beat you is not to let you see it coming, so you can't defend yourself, which means backstab you. That's what and that's all these people, whatever. That about do it. So there's you go. That's how Bill Gates became a freaking billionaire.